Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. Yeah, having a Founders Centennial IPA. Haven't had one in a while. I say that as this is my second one tonight, but you know what I mean. I was really looking forward to the brewery, Mischief. Oh, it's really good, but it's not cold, so oh well. This is gonna be a little weird. This video ran really long, and to me it was kind of boring because that's the way science is sometimes. It can get kind of boring. And I do my best to kind of get pumped up because I get excited about it. But sometimes if it just runs on and on and on, yeah, I didn't want to do that to you. So what we're gonna do is you can watch part of the video and I'll chop up little pieces. If you want to see the whole thing, you let me know. Maybe I'll do a private release and just let people see whatever they want to see when they want to see it. But I'm gonna go over the summary, what we found, what we discovered right up front. Yeah, you're like, you're giving away the whole video up front? That's crazy, yeah. Don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing, definitely appreciate it. Also remember, somewhere towards the end, yes, that's right, Kegland, the inventor of FLOTit 1 and FLOTit 2, or as I call it, FLOTit sometimes because it's FLOT, so it's how you want to pronounce it. Also the inventor of the SPUNDit or SPUNDit 2.0. Just extremely versatile spunding valve. It's beyond anything else that's out there right now. Extremely, extremely high quality, amazing. Yes, I'm gonna give you a keyword somewhere towards the end, and this thing runs about, I think it's something like 70 to 120 based on where it's being shipped to, because shipping can get kind of expensive. And he says pretty much all areas, you know, unless there's some war going on in your country, I'm sorry, but you know, most countries, if not almost all, are eligible. So there'll be a keyword, and if you don't have all these, oh, dude, they're awesome, trust me. But I'm gonna jump right into this. I'm gonna give you a quick summary. If you wanna watch parts of the video, you can. If you wanna go find the keywords, you can, or you can wait until everybody else figures it out. So, first thing, before we even go through any of that, I'm gonna give you some great information. And this was after talking to several people and debating about the best way to fill a keg that has a floating dip tube. And we'll put something like this with a filter, or maybe with this kind of filter. The problem is you really shouldn't be filling your keg with one of these already on through the liquid post. Reason being is if it's extremely clear, you're fine. But if you know you might be picking up a little yeast, a little trub, the worst thing you can do is put it into the filter on the inside, because then you're just gonna either pull it out, or you're gonna get bits and pieces from time to time, or you're gonna clog the filter, which hopefully I doubt that, but it could happen. So what one suggestion was, and I like the better suggestion after we negotiated and talked and everybody goes, yeah, I like that, is you can fill through the air post, okay? I don't like doing that. I'm a little OCD over things. Plus, if it's pre-carbonated, I feel like it's just gonna create a lot of foam. It might not, but it probably will. So the best overall solution that we came up with is, first of all, if you're using this thing that was invented 20 years ago that doesn't have a filter, don't worry about it. You can fill it and you can pull it, and the only price you're gonna pay is it's gonna hit down like an ostrich with its head in the sand towards the bottom, and you might get a little extra vitamin B or nutrients from whatever's sitting on the bottom. So that is actually a bonus for not having a filter on your system or having something to help keep it from burying its head in the bottom. You can fill it and pull it from the same thing without an issue until you get towards that bottom. So there is a good reason for this. Now moving on to the more advanced systems. What we found was probably the best solution, and it will require you to either already have a FLOTit or FLOTit 2.0, or you will have to make your own little stainless steel hook with a little cool grabbing hook at the end, is to take this and disconnect it. Just don't have it on there at all. I'll give you an example like this one. So put that in your keg. There you go. You fill the beer, closed transfer, it's all good. I promise it's not gonna kill you. I always purge mine after closed transfer just to make sure, you know, it's all good. Then pull the cap off once you've pulled the CO2. Use this, reach down, make sure your hands are super clean, star sand, whatever you wanna do. Reach down, pull the tube up. It works better when it's submerged in liquid and I'm not sitting on camera. But you pull the tube up, it'll come up, you'll pull it up. And of course, I've already torn everything apart, but then you'll put your end back on, making sure it's clean, and then you drop it back in. Not a big deal. Once you drop it back in, close it up, purge it with a little CO2 through the air side, and you're good. That's it. Super simple. That way you know your filter's clean, there's nothing clogging it. You also know that your beer got in there just fine and didn't create a problem. But overall, that was the best solution, and everybody kind of agreed that that was the best overall solution. So if you have a better solution, great. If you want to pump liquid through your air side, go for it. If it's not carbonated, hey, you might help speed the carbonation up a little bit, but I'm a little, like I said, I'm a little OCD. So that's just something, it would bother me. So I don't do it. So here we go. We're gonna go over the summary. First of all, I'm gonna tell you from the least advanced to the most advanced systems, how they performed. Obviously, Torpedo Keg Buoy, top draw, generic, Kegland without the filter, okay? This thing would pull liquid all the way to the bottom. And it may or may not leave any at the very bottom, but it should get almost everything, and you shouldn't have an issue. Now, if it hits any kind of yeast, trub, or anything that's sitting at the bottom, you're gonna get a nice dose of B vitamins or whatever else kind of nutrients might be in there. That was the problem, and that's why there's much better systems or fixes out there. Going on to the second most effective, which actually did very well compared to the FLOTit 1.0. They were like literally just about a millimeter separate as far as how well they did. So this is where it gets a little weird in the test. Water tension or liquid tension, how it kind of sticks. And you see it when you do a hydrometer reading. You have that tension and it kind of pulls a little bit. So what we found is that even this thing, and this thing floats, which I never even thought about, but it floats. It floats as well as this does. It's like, it doesn't have quite the, the pull like this with a bunch of air in it, but it will sit and it will look like it's above the liquid just a little bit. But with the surface tension, it will pull up in there and you will get liquid. Same thing here. I will see the top of this and it's still pulling liquid with no air. What I did, and you'll see, I used a 10-gallon aquarium. I filled it with water. I verified it was level. Nothing behind me wasn't level. The camera wasn't level, but it was level. So that's all that mattered. And I literally went and sucked the water into another container and let it siphon until I got it down to a certain point. And then I literally went back and I blew air into each one. I went to clear them out and then sucked back and make sure it only pulled water, or if it pulled water and bubbles. And water wasn't very good. It was tap water. It's kind of gross. But hey, so it did very well. The Kegland did very well. I'm not gonna say it did great, but it did very well. And the FLOTit didn't do much better, but it did a little bit better. Now, moving on to the more advanced systems. We had, and I don't have them on me because they are in my kegs, using them for pulling beer. But then we had the FLOTit or FLOTit 2.0, and we had the clear beer draft system. Now, what kind of blew my mind there is that I expected FLOTit 2.0 to just blow the clear beer draft system out of the water for two reasons. One, I look at them and I see how they're designed and I can tell how they work. And I expect from what I'm seeing that it will work better. Also knowing that the inventor of FLOTit 2.0 compared them, and he knows what he had to do to make his better than what was currently out on the market. So before he released it, of course, he made sure it was the best that you could get and that it would get every last drop of the beer. Well, it did about a millimeter more than the clear beer draft system. But what blew me away was that the clear beer draft system, and this is probably about the best visual I can give you here, it has a tube on the bottom and has a little cut in the top. And you can see that in the previous video where I went over just the clear beer draft system. That little cut, you're expecting any liquid to go below that cut. You're not gonna get any more beer. I was wrong. The same thing that happened with this filter, and even the filter I just tore all apart that was on the FLOTit 2.0 is, and FLOTit 2.0 did the same thing, because even though it was down where it should be pulling some air, it didn't. It's that tension. It's almost like the liquid stuck to the edges of the filter. And it did the same thing because on the clear beer draft system, it has a filter. And that filter, even though it's only one filter versus two, it allowed the liquid to pull up in it, and it pulled enough liquid across the hole that when it started pulling it, it got almost no air or a very minute amount, in which if it's in your keg, it should be CO2. But I was actually very impressed. Now, here's the limitation that I see. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you go, yeah, I like it that way, it'll be all great. The advantage you have is something like this, when you're in like an all-rounder and you're pointing it. Same advantage here, same advantage with all of them, except the Clear Beer Draught System. The Clear Beer Draught System is really nice. It does have the biggest ball of them all, but I don't see it being as versatile. The FLOTit 2.0 beat it by just a hair, but it's just smaller, more versatile, and works better in different situations from what I see. I am, like I said, a tiny bit biased, but it's because I know a great deal behind it, and I've come to test it so many different times on other systems that I know what to expect. But like I did say on the Clear Beer Draught System, I was impressed. I didn't expect the results I got, and it performed incredibly well. You can tell it's gone through quite a few revisions to get there, and that's one of the things I love with companies, is when they keep reinventing themselves to get better. But yeah, it is the most expensive system. I don't feel it would work as well in like an all-rounder or something like that, just because it's not as maneuverable. You got that big metal plate and you're trying to get the little hole to line up with the last drop of liquid. I do think it works great in a keg, but when it costs about as much as a used keg, or more than a used keg based on what you're paying for your used kegs, that's where the drawbacks really kind of come to light. And if it was comparable in price, I would say both of them were great, but you're gonna pay more for something that's not going to outperform the FLOTit 2.0, and on top of that, not be as versatile. So at the end of the day, the FLOTit 2.0 wins. Clear Beer Draught System, I mean, neck and neck right behind it, especially if you're comparing it for kegs. And then the FLOTit did a great job. If you have any of the old systems like this, unless you like that B vitamin at the end, I would say either go out to eBay, grab some of these, or grab some of these. That's gonna be your better filter. It does a better job. It also will probably pull a little more liquid towards the end because of the way it sits. And it's hard to see, but it actually would sit a little lower. So you get the last few extra sips that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Now I'm gonna jump into the video. I'm just gonna kind of skim through it real fast here and there. You can kind of see what I did. And then I'll give you the key word for the SPUNDit 2.0, because I wanna get back to my IPA, man. I know you're like, what is he doing now? Floating dip tubes, side by side. I'm gonna just put them all along the side. We're gonna add some water and just see how they float and how they go towards the bottom, and just compare them side by side. That way everybody can see the differences. The first one is the Clear Beer Draught System. The second one is the FLOT, F-L-O-T, it 2.0, FLOTit 1.0. This is the Kegland Floating Dip Tube with the filter upgrade, which is an add-on, although in some kits they are including it now, which is nice. And then this is the floating buoy. Here's a side-by-side for each one of them. As you can see, the Clear Beer Draught System is completely submerged. The FLOTit 2.0, completely submerged. The FLOTit 1 does not look quite as submerged, but it actually, when I did a test, I'm getting nothing but water. Same thing with Kegland's buoy. It doesn't look submerged either with the filter. I didn't realize this, but it is just enough to pull the liquid, just like it is here on FLOTit. That little filter is plastic and it floats. So it floats almost as well as the buoy. And then if we look over here, we can actually see the floating buoy by Torpedo Keg, and it is pointing way down there without any kind of a filter. Okay, so what can I do next? Very obvious, hopefully obvious. I'm gonna remove the liquid, get it down towards the very bottom, and see which ones can still pick up liquid at the very end. We know Torpedo's keg buoy, or Torpedo's floating buoy, is definitely gonna keep picking up because it's gonna just bury its nose right into the bottom of the ocean. I'm wondering about these two. I'm expecting these two to get close and stop. These are the two I'm wondering how much further they can keep pulling liquid when the others can't. So I'm gonna test that next. But for right now, I'm gonna remove some of the liquid so you don't have to sit and watch this go down slowly. Okay, FLOTit 1.0, FLOTit, however you want to say it, and the Kegland Floating Dip Tube are out of the race. Understand I'm getting air and liquid, constant air and liquid, but if they were submerged into a little bit of trub or even, let's just say, a little additional fermentation that went on in your keg, you would get a little bit more liquid. Currently, without any trub or anything for the little filter systems or floating pieces to get submerged into, I have exactly 1/2 an inch. I just measured exactly 1/2 of an inch of liquid left. So you could leave behind a little bit. I would guess probably close to 1/4 of an inch. Now, if it's in a fermenter, yes, you can lean it to one side or another and get the majority of it out of there. But if you're in a keg, you wouldn't know, and a keg's much smaller, so you're really not losing that much liquid. But it's just something to be aware of. Starting to actually get more concerned with the clear beer draft system, because I'm realizing that that opening is at the top, and I've got liquid now to where it's almost hitting that area. So I have a feeling this one's going to be out next very quickly. And then the FLOTit, or FLOTit, however you want to say it, 2.0 will be the decided winner as far as getting the last drop of liquid from the bottom. And we already know, we'll go back again. Yeah, needs a filter, needs something to either lift it up or displace it so it's not going nose down like a ostrich into the sand or trub. Okay, kind of boggles my mind. The clear beer draft system is starting to pull air and liquid, and I've got about, I thought I had another millimeter before it was pulling pure air. FLOTit 2.0 is doing great, and what I'm doing is, you'll see some air in here, I'm blowing air through them and then making sure they can still pull liquid. I'm not sure how that one's doing it. Not sure how either one's doing it. Let me give you a little close-up. If you look in there, the filter is barely touching the water and the hole is up above, which I'm keeping the hose straight up, as that would be how it would be in your system. But it is still somehow able to get the liquid. I'm thinking the liquid is pulling up around the edge of the filter. It should have stopped quite a while ago, and it is still pulling liquid. But like I said, it's now starting to pull mainly air and very little liquid. A hair, and I do mean a hair, not even a millimeter, below 1/4 inch. And the FLOTit, or FLOTit 2.0 is still working. Not sure how, but it is still working. So, I mean, yeah, you're just a hair below 1/4 inch of beer and it's sitting in your trub. You're probably not going to be losing any beer, or very little, if any, and it will be driplets or droplets, however you want to call it. The balls. Key words, key phrase, key word. I'll put it down below so there's no confusion. SPUNDit 2.0. SPUNDit space 2.0. Put it in your comment. Make that your comment, put it in a sentence, whatever you want to do. If you have any questions about the SPUNDit 2.0 or the FLOTit or the FLOTit 2.0, Trog, the inventor, has actually been looking at a lot of the comments, and sometimes he can answer them a lot better than I can because he invented it. Definitely feel free to ask. Exactly 7 days from now, around the same time, we'll pull a name right out of the comments with the little randomizer, and we'll let that person know they won, and he will ship it to them. Hopefully they don't live on another planet. But other than that, they should be good. And trust me, yeah, that's like an early Christmas gift, like major. Special thank you to Trog out there. Huge, huge thank you for the support to the channel, for that, and everything else on the information and questions that have been answered. I'm gonna go on with the rest of the video. Okay, it didn't take much longer. I got down about another millimeter, maybe a hair more than a millimeter, but then the FLOTit 2.0 started pulling air. So it won, not by much, but when you compare the price between this, even though it's not listed yet, and what this costs, this is a much more advantageous choice based on price and ability, but solid construction, really nice, lots of thought, expensive, but you know, it doesn't look like it was cheap to make. Least effective all the way down here. Least effective all the way down here in the corner will get you all the way to the bottom and probably grab you some nice B vitamins from the bottom. So something to be aware of. You can put a filter like this and get these pretty cheap, the plastic ones, or you can get the double stainless filters off eBay, which is from the FLOTit or FLOTit, however you want to say it, 2.0 system, and hook it on there. So you can add a filter. So yeah, so if you have a lot of these old buoys from Torpedo Keg, you can easily get a bunch of these, or like I said, the nicer ones, and add them and keep what you have and just basically modify it and have a better dip tube. Thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Cheers. Don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing, and I'll try to keep the videos coming and try to make sure they're as useful as humanly possible. Thank you again, and cheers.